Welcome to Conscious Conversations on the Sacred Letters channel. I'm Beth Mund,
And I'm Barrett Stover.
and we're here today to talk about how we connect with the other side, but more specifically, we're going to talk with Barrett about her incredible out-of-body experience and how this transformative spiritual experience opened her up in order to connect and communicate with the other side. So Barrett, go ahead. Why don't you talk a little bit about how that happened and what unfolded from it?
So I had been hearing from the other side, but it really was in May of 2016 when I had a profound out-of-body experience that things just took off to another level. I have multiple sclerosis, and it was actually May of 2016. I was doing very well. I had been walking the dog, and there was a friend of ours, both Beth and my friend, who had lost her brother. And I was sending a text message to her, just giving my condolences. I did not know him. And I began to hear so much in my left ear from him that I sent this to my friend, and she was kind of blown away. And she said, I don't know how you know all this. And I said, I'm just hearing it. And she said, I need to talk to you on the phone, since I had been texting her. And so when we did speak on the phone, I said, it feels so strange to me. I sometimes don't feel like I'm here. I feel like I have one leg in the spirit world and one leg here. And it was within hours of uttering that statement that I, quote, kind of lost my left leg. So what that means for me with MS is that my leg fills with like 500 pounds of lead. I can't move it unless someone moves it for me. And I was in pain beyond anything I had experienced before, and it sent me to the hospital. And it was during that week that I was put into the MRI. What it usually means for someone with MS is it means you have new lesions on your brain and your spine that are affecting your ability to walk and manifesting all these other symptoms. And it was during that session, it was a Friday before Mother's Day, May of 2016, I was being slid into the MRI, and I was on like Tylenol and a steroid. So I was very present, and I had begun to pray. I don't like the MRI. I get kind of this claustrophobia feeling. And it was
many of us do. Yeah.
I don't know. But it was during that time that I actually felt the presence of Jesus. I felt him come. I felt the light, and I heard in my ear, peace be with you, my peace I give to you, and I love you and you are mine. And after that, I could see myself lying in the tray in the MRI, but I was above myself. I was taken to so many different places. There was no time. Wherever I was, there was no time. So it's almost like so many things were happening simultaneously. And one of the places I was taken, everything was on my left side, but on one of the first places I was taken was to this grassy hillside that was on my left. And people were staggered on the hillside. I almost felt like I was going to a picnic. And I remember going to different people and saying, what are you up to? Some of the people I had spoken to before who had come to my bedside over the years or had been in my awareness and I had communication with. So some of them I knew and others I didn't.
Did you know them personally, or you just recognized them from that earlier time?
So some of them I had known and others I didn't know. And everyone just came straight to me, and I had just a very short conversation with them, and they were all explaining things that they were doing in their new spiritual realm. Some of them I did not totally understand, but they were all amazingly connected in some way of service.
What do you mean you didn't understand? Were they speaking a different language, or?
No, they were all speaking English, but one gentleman was explaining to me that he had been a scientist in this lifetime, and he had been working with crystallines and crystals, and he was explaining all that he had done to get it to a point when he was living, and that he was continuing that research on the other side. And he shared with me that before he had incarnated into his past life, that he had also been doing that. Another woman who I had met, I didn't really know her well, but she had had cancer and passed from cancer, a young mother. she spoke to me about working with families. And she actually took me in the conversation. We were automatically transported to inside a barn. And she and I were standing inside a barn, and there was this big barn door, and it was just open just enough so you could see the light coming into the barn. And I don't know if you've ever been into a horse stable, but when the light comes in, it kind of picks up the dust that's in the air, and you could see the light streaming in and sort of the dust dancing in the barn. And she was telling me that you are to help people to open that barn door, to go into the light, to feel the light, that we are all have free will, that we all have choice, but it's our choice to open that door.
Are you talking about go into the light when we cross over, or the light that's here on?
I think she was speaking to being in the, we are light.
Yeah.
I think it had many meanings. For me, it was to be our light, to allow that light to come in. And here we were in a dark, it was relatively dark in that barn, and to open the door so that we are in the light, that we are the light that we are. And I think it speaks, we're all a piece of divinity. We're all a piece of source, whether it's God or Allah or the Great Spirit. We are all, there's something greater than ourselves that we're all a piece of, and we all have a piece of that spirit, I believe, within each of us. And it's allowing that to come through us to be the truth of really who we are.
That's amazing. Now, is this the other side?
I don't know. I don't know where I was. I was conscious that things were almost on top of each other that gave the feeling that there was no time. And I was conscious too that I was being trained or taught or given insights and things that I was given in 2016. And now it's, we're into 2020. They have since come true. Things that I was told would happen have actually happened.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Well, one of the other things was I remember walking with Jesus. I remember walking down a long portico, and it was all kind of stone, and off to my right, I could see kind of arches of stone. I didn't know what was down that area. But I remember walking down and then taking a left and I was by myself at that point. And I turned to my left and I went into this brilliant nothingness. There was light above, below, to either side. And when I looked again, I saw this long rectangular table, and there were 4 angels on one side. And I remember coming to the table, and there was this big book on the table, which I didn't know what that was. And I remember laughing and saying to each angel, tell me your name, but I'm never the best at remembering names. But they each introduced themselves. It was the angel of kindness, the angel of patience, the angel of compassion, and the angel of grace. And at the head of the table sat the angel of truth.
Wow.
And they told me, you are a messenger. You are to give messages. And I remember asking them, how do I give messages to people that I never even met here, let alone on the other side? And they said to me that you will be given that piece of information. It's almost like one piece of information that gets everything kind of connecting and talking. It's like when we go to, a party and someone introduces us to a new person and says, oh, you're interested in this hobby, or something that connects us, that starts the conversation.
I remember when you and I were at a book fair, and a woman came up to our table, and you immediately heard, who's Ronnie? And Ronnie was this woman's sister-in-law, I believe.
I think sister-in-law's husband. Yeah.
Ronnie was the
sister-in-law. Yeah, I'm always hearing different things. So
that was one thing you were given, and then she said, she was taken aback, and she said, how do you know that? That's my sister-in-law's husband. And then the conversation went from there. And we ended up connecting with Ronnie for a reading through that. But you heard that one piece of information. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. Well, right. That could be a piece of information. Yeah. Getting, yeah, different. Sometimes it's to open the awareness to bring somebody into our path. I do remember that time we were signing books, and I kept getting images of Happy Days, the 1960s, and I kept hearing Ronnie, Ronnie. And so when I was writing for this woman who I did not know, and I kept saying, I said to her, "Who's Ronnie?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, that is who you're writing to, the widow, unbeknownst to you. I'm giving her your book." And Ronnie was her husband. And it was not long after that that she contacted us to ask if we would connect with Ron, her beloved husband, and to do a reading. So again,
He was so dear. Barrett and I do our readings together, and I just loved him when we were talking with him. He's a teacher, and he was teaching us as we were connecting with him, and he showed us her gold ring, a gold ring that he had given her when they were 16, in his hand. And when we spoke to her about that, she confirmed that that was the ring he gave her. We weren't sure if it was a wedding ring. We just knew it was a ring that he had given her when they were 16, which was so dear.
yeah.
So
So when we're doing the different readings, both Beth and I are pulling into our awareness, since we both can connect with the same spirit. We're pulling into our awareness, and we're tag teaming back and forth, text messaging between each other, all the images, songs, words, the personality. For me, the personality comes through first, or comes through so profoundly, and I get different pieces, and then it just keeps opening. So it's almost like it keeps opening and opening, so that we're getting more and more information. Yeah. And it's not long after that you, Beth, go and you transcribed word for word a sacred letter that the spirit is channeling through automatic writing.
Yeah, I mean, so much has unfolded since you've had your spiritual experience. I've had a number of spiritual experiences, which I'm going to talk about in a different video. But I'm being led back in my mind to you laying there in the MRI machine, and here's Jesus, and here you are on the other side and having these incredible experiences. Are you aware you're having these experiences, why they're happening, or you're just going with it?
When I was out of my body and I was in that moment, it was more real than my life in this body, if that makes sense. It's almost like it was in Technicolor. It was just much more sharper, and all of the different, I was just aware of so many different pieces or innuendos, and so much was happening. I felt like I was being tutored. I felt like I was being prepared. I remember other instances and places I was taken to, but at the end, I was told, "You're a messenger. You are to be connecting." I remember Jesus showing me this huge Rolodex, which for younger people, it's almost like it's like a circular
telephone
file that keeps all the contact information. And I was told that you are to connect with people here on this earth and to people on the other side, and to connect those and amass this great Rolodex, which we've been really doing since we've been connecting since 2016. But I remember too, before I came back into my body, I remember vowing to give the messages that I was being given, because before that time I was given messages, but I didn't always deliver them. And I was, grateful for the insight that gave me, but I didn't pass along to who it was intended to. And I remember Jesus saying to me, "The messages aren't for you, but to be given with great love and great care." And so since I came back into my body, the messages that are coming through and the work that you and I are doing, Beth, I feel like I'm honoring my vow and my commitment to do what I've been asked to do in the best way that I can in giving those messages. And I'm really so grateful when I do connect with somebody and I pass the message that they just receive the message. What they do with it is their choice. And I try to give it as with much love and much care, but that I've done my part to pass that on to them. And I have to say, I've spoken with so many different people and they don't always understand it, but they're so grateful.
Yeah.
And things are revealed over time, as we both know.
So I know with me, when I didn't have the same experiences as you, where someone telling me I had to pass the messages on, I learned the hard way where I connect very strongly with animals, and I didn't realize the depth of the connection and the communication until I was with this woman. And she lived on a farm and her dog was running around and sort of limping a little bit. And I heard very strongly her dog has Lyme disease. And I wasn't aware at that point that I was a messenger and I needed to deliver these messages. So I thought, I don't know who said that or where that came from. And I'm just going to not tell her. And I went home and I started feeling very anxious because I didn't deliver the message. And when I came back to see her, I decided to go see her the next day and tell her that I told her that her dog, she should get her dog checked for Lyme. And she said, that was one of my thoughts on my mind. And because her dog had a limp, and I didn't tell her necessarily that I heard it. I didn't have to, but I did tell her that I suggested she do it, and that she did, and the dog had Lyme. And so I learned that if I don't deliver these messages, that I get filled with angst the same way when I'm doing the sacred letters. I'm filled with an angst, and if I don't sit down and do the automatic writing, that doesn't go away. And I have to do it, which is delivering a message in a different way. It's just through writing, but it is delivering messages. And then I feel relief. Did you feel, when you give messages, do you feel relieved? Like, I think you had said that you feel like you've done your part. Do you physically?
Yeah. I feel, what I feel is that it actually opens and allows that person to kind of validates or reaffirms things that they're getting. So sharing some of them, like you just said, the woman kind of had this inkling, or, it's that intuition, it's that feeling. And I think in sharing, all of us, all of us are connected in different ways. All of us are. And when we are open and can share that, saying, this is what I'm hearing, and just, it allows the other person to make that possible too for themselves. And it also allows them to maybe come forward more vocally and say, that's so interesting because I was kind of feeling that, or it reaffirms something. I mean, the messages that we pass to so many people in these readings has actually been validated or reaffirmed, and it's helped them to even open their own connections more deeply
most of the time, sometimes
with loved ones.
Yeah, sometimes I've seen that the messages, they're unsure of them sometimes, or they're not ready for them. But that's their feeling. But we've experienced that we don't receive anything that's not meant to be told to somebody, because I have not received things when asked, and it's because they're not meant to hear it or know it. So I know for you and for me, I believe that when we receive something, we need to pass it along, because we wouldn't be receiving it if it wasn't meant to be passed.
But I think it also builds on that they are able to, some of the feedback that we've received from readings that we've done is that it's, one woman shared that now she's seeing her father in her dreams.
Yeah.
And that she's feeling so much more connected. It's almost like it opens the door for them to, and not that we have to do anything, but it almost gives her the confidence.
Yeah.
She's always had it all along, but sometimes some people just need that confidence that, yes, you were feeling that. And now she's seeing her father in her dreams and getting her own messages. So I think, we're so all connected. I mean, there's so many, there's never a coincidence. There's the synchronicities that we find in life are so they're not a coincidence, and they have meaning, and it's to feel into that meaning that gives us insights, that expands our knowing.
So when we run into someone, there's a reason for it, or when we receive a message, there's a reason for it, and that's why we're to deliver it. It's not an accident. So
it's never an accident.
No.
It reminds me, Beth, of, I was at ShopRite one day, and I was this older gentleman who was in his car. I had never seen him before or since, but he was backing out. So I motioned to him, to back out, and he rolled down his passenger window. And occasionally, since my out-of-body experience, not only do I hear is everything is on my left side, but I sometimes see people. It's almost like my phone lines got upgraded, and I have a little bit of Skype. So often, not often, but sometimes I do see the spiritual person. And sitting in this passenger seat, I saw a woman, and I said to the gentleman, "Did you lose your wife?" And he said, "Yes." And we started talking, and I could hear her saying to me, the first thing was she was concerned what he was eating. And I said, "I know this sounds really strange, but I communicate with people who have passed, and she's concerned with what you're eating." And at that time they were renovating ShopRite, and he asked, "Will they have the ready-made meals?" And I said, "I think that they will." We got to talking for a long time, and she told me, which was amazing, she told me his full address of where he lived. Of course, I don't even know who this man is. And so I said, "You live at such and such?" And he was stunned. And he said, "How do you know?" And I said, "Your wife just told me where you lived." And so we talked about that. And because I knew his address, later when I got home, I wrote him a letter. But at the end of our conversation, we must have spoken for like 30 minutes. And she was part of the conversation, Beth. She was telling me things, and the three of us were like having a conversation there in the ShopRite parking lot. And he said to me at the end, "You're the first stranger I've spoken with in 10 years or something like that." I mean, our older people so need our love and our connection.
That's so
but
cool.
Anyway, so that was amazing.
That's amazing. That's to not only to receive that information, but to tell him, to be able to tell him, because actually my experience is you never know how someone is necessarily going to react. Most people do react openly and feel good about it, but sometimes it's hard to hear the information. So I know we're ending our time here, but what happened when you came back? I'm just circling back to the MRI machine. So, I know you lost feeling in your leg, and did you tell everybody when you came out that I saw Jesus?
You know what? After that, I came back, I got wheeled back to my room, and I was profoundly open. I mean, I knew things about the nurses that I don't even know. The nurses are changing shifts every, I don't know. It's like a full-time job being a patient in the hospital, right? Because there's so much activity. I was so open, and I was hearing so much, and I was just passing it along to different people. And I remember immediately when I got back, one of the gentlemen that was speaking about the science, I knew his daughter. And as soon as I got back to my room, I called her and I said, "Do you have a minute? I just want to share this." And it made perfect sense to her. Everything that I could remember from our conversation, the conversation I had with her father. And it was just amazing. So I just stayed true to it. And the feeling that has happened since 2016 and working, finding you, Beth, and knowing that we're kind of the missing piece for each other, with me as the scout and you, the transcriber, is that
was no coincidence either that we met. I think pretty much we were meant to find each other.
And so I think for me, I acted upon what I had vowed to do. And so now when I receive messages, and particularly when we receive these sacred letters, we find who they go to. whether we knew the person here or they're a stranger. And just as angels had promised, they always give that information, give whatever amazing piece of information that kind of unlocks the box to find the clues to find the person.
And how did the MRI turn out medically?
Oh, what was so amazing with that MRI is that I had no lesions. My doctors were baffled because I had acute situation for MS, and I had had 2 days of 4 hours total of an MRI across 2 days, and there wasn't any new lesions. So my doctors just didn't know what to make of it. They were baffled. And I knew the truth. I don't understand it all, but I knew that for whatever reason, I had to be brought to great stillness. And you can't get more still than being put into 4 hours of an MRI, as most of us know from going through that. So I knew that it just moved me to the next level. And as I mentioned, I felt after I came back and honoring what I was receiving, that my phone lines were upgraded and my awareness expanded. And the more that I was present and loose and aware and receiving, discerning, but receiving, that more and more has come through. And it's just amazing.
So, and the last takeaway I feel about this is it's pretty incredible that you were meant to be in this MRI machine. You had no lesions, yet your one leg, you felt dead and heavy and painful. And you had just uttered that you had one foot in this world and one foot on the other side in the spiritual realm. And your physical body actually, something happened to it. It wasn't just you, oh, I'm going to go lay down and have this experience. Your body put you in that experience, and
that place for that to allow that to open.
Yes, and how connected our bodies and our minds and our souls and whatever we're meant to do is so connected here.
And to go through these experiences, I think we all have had challenges. We've all faced adversities. We've all gone through that, and it's not pretty. I mean, it's painful and it's scary because there's an uncertainty. The thing that you just reminded me of was, it was on Mother's Day, that Sunday that I was discharged, and I went home, and I was actually probably walking within a week, whereas when I first shut down and was bedridden with both legs in 2010, it had taken me maybe 3 months with therapy to learn to walk again, to get my balance and stability and so forth. And so it was really, it was so out of the blue, yet it was so guided. And I don't understand it all. I don't try to understand it all. I just honor my little piece of what came forward and what piece that I feel that I am to do. And it's to be connecting here and connecting there to bring forward messages and to really be honoring all of us, each of us, for the truth that we are all light, that we are all energy, that we are all worthy, that we are all love, and that we're all so connected with one another. And I think that it's being that magnificence that we each are. We're such extraordinary, wondrous spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings. And I think that experience, I've just, it's still so palpable. It's still so clear in my mind because it was unlike anything I had ever experienced.
It was incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for tuning in. And we hope to have more conscious conversations about everything from our own experiences to our readings that come up and the messages that we are consistently receiving and the sacred letters that are coming through. So please tune in again, and thank you for joining us. And we'll put a link in below the video on where you can contact us and where, if you would like a personal reading, how to go about doing that, and how to be in touch with us. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.